You're familiar with Bhagavad Gita? You raised your hand also, no? No? Yes. You're familiar with Bhagavad, little bit. Little bit. Okay. Something like 10 years ago, one of our leaders was scheduled to become the chairman of the organizational structure that oversees ISKCON. And lo and behold, there was no job description for being the chairman. So, being a very responsible gentleman, he approached 3 different groups of people to help give him some guidance and a job description. And one of the groups of people he approached were devotees, Hare Krishna devotees, that were professors at Oxford University that certainly knew Bhagavad Gita, and they knew about leadership and things like that. So those persons got together with persons like me that are out and about in the world, and other leaders that have been in leadership position before, and they had a little some time together, and they came up with, you lead by values. Good leaders, whatever the personality is, may do it like this or may do it like that. They're guided by values. So that was a starting point. And then they looked at Bhagavad Gita, and long story short, they came up with 6 Gita values. And I was supposed to send out a paragraph for those 6 Gita values, and I didn't do it. Well, Parmananda is going to remind me, so I'll do it. He's going to remind me, so I'll do it. And so you'll have the first 2, that yesterday and today, and then the other 4, because sometime I may do the other 4. Let's see. And it's values of how an individual or a group of individuals or an organization leads with the principles that guide work. So from Bhagavad Gita, this is the cover image that those of you know. Krishna is the chariot driver, the chief warrior who receives the message of Bhagavad Gita. His name is Arjuna, one of 5 brothers, and especially gifted warrior. And Krishna became his chariot driver. There's some other chariots and so forth. And I'll point out, up on each chariot has a flag, and on the flag there's some emblem. And the emblem on Arjuna's little nice piece. Some of you have heard of Madhvacharya. How many have never heard of Madhvacharya before? Madhvacharya. Acharya, he's a teacher. And he's one of 4 principal persons. Ramanujacharya, you've heard. So like a near contemporary, only he lived in a different place than, he lived in Udupi, which is on the western side of India. That was his place. And he wrote a whole commentary on Mahabharata, of which Bhagavad Gita is the small middle piece. History, and then philosophy in the middle, the sandwich. And Madhvacharya expressed in his Mahabharata commentary, Mahabharata Tatparya is the name, that when Krishna spoke to Arjuna, he was really speaking to Hanuman. He's a Hanuman fan. More than a fan, he's related to him. So that Hanuman was on Arjuna's flag was important. And Krishna spoke the message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And within Bhagavad Gita, there's Gita values. And I hope the light changer works. Mhm. There's spiritual culture and there's values that drive spiritual culture. It's not working. There we go. Okay, I'm going to stand over here in case it gets stuck again. I have a friend. I have a few friends. And one of them got a PhD in organization development. That was his PhD. And this image came from him because he explained how organizations organize themselves. And one of the things that they do is they look at culture of an organization. Supposing one corporation buys out another corporation and they go through some procedure. This is their procedure. They look at the culture of the organization and evaluate it. So it starts with what's at the top. What they want is they want certain behaviors, and they call it artifacts in their culture of their organization development, things that are measurable, perceivable in an individual or group of individuals. There's behaviors and speech and conduct and norms that are observable, measurable up there at the tip of the iceberg that's above the water. And that's below the water is generally something that's done is they make a mission statement for an organization. And the mission statement for an organization or a group of persons or yourself is, what's your purpose? Like a nice example. This is a nice example. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, he had a mission. And his mission was to establish or bring to the English speaking parts of the world the message of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Chaitanya, etc., etc. So when it came time for incorporating, one of the things he needed to do was make articles of incorporation. So one of the first things that the people that review submissions, they want to see your statement of purpose. That's what number 2 is. Mission statements, official beliefs. We say this is important. This is the value of our life. And then values drive behaviors. And behaviors can influence and modify over time, certainly, values that's going on in society today. Values are changing because behaviors are changing. And it's predictable. So there's an interaction between behaviors and values, but largely values drive behaviors. And then at the bottom of that iceberg, the slide changer's not working. There we go. There's some things that don't change. Unchanging realities that doesn't matter. Values may change, behaviors may change, something doesn't change. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, we're spirit soul. That doesn't change. Values and behaviors may change over time, but that doesn't change. So that's the iceberg of culture. And we're going to be focusing on the stated values. Its slide changer's not working. Could you touch the screen, please? I'm going to spend a little bit of time, This is review for those of you who were with us yesterday. There's 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, and chapter 13 is knowledge of the absolute. And in knowledge of the absolute, these verses 8 through 12 of chapter 13 speak of knowledge. And I invite you sometime many of you received a Bhagavad Gita yesterday. Maybe more will receive a Bhagavad Gita today. and you can look it up at your leisure. But knowledge of the absolute is actually quality. This quality that, like, manit vamba dumbit vum, humility and pridelessness. That's a quality. Quality. And quality drives behaviors, the value. So there's knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, but more than knowledge, there's how you live your life according to that knowledge. That's wisdom. A person that's wise doesn't just say something and do something else. And there's information in Bhagavad Gita, but it's much more than information. There's information, but it's much more. So the emphasis I want to make here is Gita values, this topic that we're speaking about, is character, is qualities. Yesterday we spoke about equanimity of vision, quality of vision, samadarshana in Sanskrit. Seeing there's differences. Look around the room, there's differences of gender, of color, of language, and this and that and the other thing. There's differences. And there's a sameness. And the value of Bhagavad Gita, you recognize, you don't turn your discriminating faculty off. You can see differences. But beyond the differences, you see the spark of life that's within, that's driving the machine. It has differences. The souls, there's different souls, each of us. But we're all spirit soul. That's the unchanging reality, that bottom of the iceberg thing. And the idea is to align that unchanging reality with values that lead to higher consciousness. That's the idea. Like many doorways between the door and the floor, there's a strip of wood or something. And in carpentry, it's called a limen. Or in architecture, there's the indoors, there's the outdoors, and there's a patio. That's a limen. Neither this nor that. So liminal space is a nice term I like. It's indicating the values are over on the right side. That's where we want to go. And where we are is over on the left side. And between where we want to go and where we are is a big gap, generally speaking. A little uncomfortable sometimes. Similarly, in becoming what you want to be in your life as adults, not just teenagers, anyone, there's where we want to be. And then there's where we are. And there's a big gap. And that's a liminal space. And to cross that liminal space takes some work. It takes some other things besides work. It takes wisdom. It takes courage. I was thinking just the other day, I remember when I was in college, there was a popular book that John F. Kennedy wrote, Profiles in Courage. Popular book, Profiles in Courage, because he was like a courageous guy. And to be a leader of your life, you have to have courage. You have to have conviction. You have to know where you're going. And you have to have a strong enough desire to get to where you want to go, despite there's obstacles and discomfort getting there. I'm thinking of some other nice examples from the Vedas. But we all meet our challenges of, it's good to have it's essential, more than good, to have a clear idea where you want to go. Like, on this side is birth, on that side is death, and in between is life. So what's life meant for? Good question. What's supposed to go in that space? Is it get really good at some career, or preparing yourself for some career, and the bell rings and you got your degree? You're prepared. You go out in the job market, you got a job, and you start making money, and you're a success because all those things. Is that really what life is? Really? Is there anything more than, and then what do you do with that? You get some money and you get a house and you get a family, you get children, and you get old and you die and everything's taken from you. That it? So a thoughtful person, it's not like you trash all that, but there's something deeper and more profound. And thoughtful people want to know what that is and want to connect with it while they're alive, because Bhagavad Gita teaches in Sanskrit, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chajat ante me at the end, kalevaram. Whatever your mind is absorbed in, at the moment the soul leaves the body, that thought, that mental absorption will carry you to the next destination. So what you are absorbed in is important. If it's just the things that I listed, you're missing the point. Anyone that does that is missing the point. It's not to say trash it. It's just say that's not it. It's not sufficient. Maybe necessary, but not sufficient. There's mathematical language like that. Necessary, but not sufficient. So now what? So there's that liminal space. Identify. So Gita values is over here. Where we are is maybe over there somewhere. And there's a big gap. So this is like, don't feel bad because we're all in the same boat. The good news is from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will help us get there. We're not doing a solo. That's good to know. That's yoga, linking with the Supreme to get to where you want to go. Next. Okay, so this is Gita value number 2. Yesterday, Samadarshana, or seeing with equal vision, recognizing differences. Your intelligence is operating, seeing differences. And the spiritual intelligence is operating because you see the sameness within all living, not just all humans, but all forms of life, and therefore respect. Let's say it the other way. Supposing you don't see that, you got preferences. There's some going to the negative side. Yeah, there's disrespect. That's unpleasant for oneself and what to speak of the person on the other side. There's a value to live your life by. Samadarshana. Next is ahimsa. So here we go. Human history shows records of violence, wars, etc., etc. Next. Continuing until the present. There's terrorism and all kinds of things that happen periodically or even frequently. And that's not wanted. Next. Okay. Why does violence happen? And going back to yesterday's discussion, is it related or not related to equal vision? So people have their preferences, and some people like this, and therefore they don't like that. And something doesn't fit into this, you fit into that. We got a conflict. Sometimes people can be peaceful despite differences, but sometimes there's conflict. Ahimsa, so that's our value for this session. Sometimes is taken by Buddhists specifically, is taken to cause the least amount of harm to another living entity, any living entity. Not only don't bring harm, but just by your existing, by your breathing and your walking, and you're walking across the floor, there's who knows what microbes and other living entities, and walk across the grass, you breathe, and living entities are sacrificing their life just because you exist. So one of the principles of nonviolence is to minimize that, the sufferings, the inconveniences and suffering that other have to go through just because I exist. That's one concept. That's a Buddhist concept. It's recommended by Buddhism. And there's another meaning. Nonviolence means avoiding violence. Next. At every level. Physical, verbal, and emotional. There's something that I understand. There was a session yesterday for everyone. Was it everyone? The nonviolent communication or empathic communication. Everyone attended. So that's the verbal nonviolence. That's good. It's a good value. Physical nonviolence, emotional nonviolence. Then, from Bhagavad Gita, there's a perspective that goes beyond not causing pain and suffering to others. By the way, it's in Bhagavad Gita. Now, some of you have a Bhagavad Gita. You can look it up later. 17:15 Bhagavad Gita. Krishna speaks about the quality of speech that doesn't bring discomfort and suffering to others. Speak the truth palatably. Look, I'm just going to be truthful. I'm not going to harm you, but got to speak the truth, man. There's a way to say things that's not abrasive and while speaking the truth. And that valve is a mode of goodness valve. Don't deviate from truth, but don't bring misery to others by conveying the truth somehow. That's a mode of goodness kind of speech. Speaking the truth palatably. And that's a mode of goodness behavior, but there's another perspective from Bhagavad Gita. Let's hear it. Next. Nonviolence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually nonviolence means not to put others into distress. That's from that same section. This word ahimsa, that's our topic for this Gita values, is right in this section, items of knowledge, ahimsa. Go ahead, next. People in general are trapped. This is commentary from the purport of that section of Bhagavad Gita. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So the image is meant to show, like the classic, the ostrich sees some danger. So they a rabbit closes his eyes and an ostrich sticks his hand in the sand. There's no danger because I can't see it. Danger went away. But that's not how dangers go away. So how do you deal with dangers in a ahimsa fashion? A good question. It's a nice value to ponder. Many times, people don't know what actually benefits them and what is beneficial for human society in general. Now, this is taken from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10. Chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita is knowledge of the absolute. So it's nice to have knowledge, and it's nice to have knowledge of the absolute because that includes all knowledge. But many people don't have knowledge. They don't have wisdom. They're covered by something else called ignorance. And that's just the circumstance of life, unfortunately. The Bhagavad Gita is meant to give light where there's darkness like that. And then you can start to see what's what instead of you can't see because of being covered by ignorance. Next. Same verse. The human body is meant for spiritual realization. So any movement or any commissions which do not further that end commit violence on the human body. Like if you don't know what's of your best interest, I'll tell a little story. Once upon a time, I was a kid. Seemed like a long time ago. And where I lived, it was in kind of, it wasn't in far in the country, but it wasn't urban like Singapore. I saw a photograph of what Hong Kong and Singapore looked like about 40 years ago. Oh boy, very different. Now it's high-rise buildings, and you know what it is. So where I lived was not in the country, but wasn't urban. And one year, when I was a kid, there was an infestation of locusts. There's a kind of these little guys, about this big fat bodies and wings. And they came in swarms, looked like a cloud. And they would land on a tree, and you could hear chomp, 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 chomp. And they just ate all the leaves and all the trees, and they go to the next tree. And so, unfortunately, I was trying to be helpful, and Mom and Dad gave me this little spray gun that would kill the locusts to save the trees. So I was going around spraying the trees because the locusts wouldn't eat where there was this poison spray. Then I saw some locusts on our kitty cat. So I sprayed the kitty cat. Next morning, the kitty cat was dead in the garage because they licked their body and they got the poison and they died. The intention wasn't to kill the cat. There was a good intention. I mean, notionally, but it wasn't intelligent. And there was consequence. I felt really bad. To this day, I remember it. It was a bad feeling. But it's too late. Ignorance drives ignorant behaviors. And knowledge drives wise behaviors. At least the potential is there. So that which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called nonviolent. That's a nice definition, different than the ordinary one. I hope you got the distinction. Spiritual elevation is nonviolence, ahimsa. Not just negation, but positive. Then how do you get spiritual elevation in the world? That's a good question. Spiritual ignorance alienates people. Next. It is the foundation for violence at any level. Ignorance. Violence at any, so nonviolence means removal of ignorance. You remove ignorance. I'm going to hit the pause button for a moment. And just speaking on spirituality, because we had this discussion in the Meet the Monk session about Buddhism. One young lady had been practicing Buddhism and kind of checked out after doing it for a while. And we did a little sharing because in my college days, I had an interest in Buddhism because it was a spiritual alternative that I wanted to explore. And subsequently, I've learned more than I knew at that time. So here's ABC. Everyone will have the answer to this question. If one follows the path of Buddhism, this question has an easy answer. The root cause of suffering is desire. Correct? From Buddhism. You familiar? No idea. Okay. The root cause of suffering is desire. Piece of cake. If you want to become free from suffering, become free from desire. Conceptually. Okay, now how do you become free from desire? The principle is two things. Live your life in mode of goodness, which includes ahimsa, nonviolence. Don't kill other living entities for the sake of your tongue. You don't kill. Live without bringing violence. And then other qualities of goodness, like truthfulness, cleanliness, compassion, charity, etc. Frame your life the incubation chamber of the mode of goodness. Live your life that way. And then what goes inside the incubation chamber? Second, very important, mindfulness, or be in the moment. Be in the moment because, according to Buddha's teaching, all there is the moment. That means the past is gone and can't get it again. The future isn't here yet. So all there is the moment. So be in the moment. In fact, there's a doctrine that's in Sanskrit, it's in Buddha's teachings. Kshanak Vijnanavad. What does that mean? Kshanak is a Sanskrit word that means less than a moment, like the blink of an eye. Kshanak Vijnana is a word that he uses for consciousness, and Vada means doctrine. The doctrine of consciousness is momentary. So be in the moment. Be in the moment. Be in the moment. Live your life in goodness. Be in the moment. When you get really good at being in the moment, guess what? You go on the other side of the moment. What's on the other side of the moment? Enlightenment. And there's a nice Sanskrit word. Realization of who you really are. And who are you really? Nothing. Nothingness, because on the other side of the moment is nothingness or voidism. Congratulations. You just annihilated yourself because you became a good Buddhist. That's the teaching. So I'll do it again. The root cause of suffering, desire. To become free from suffering, become free from desire. How to become free from desire? Two things. Mode of goodness, starting with ahimsa, that's our topic, and other mode of goodness, conditioned values, ways of living. And then inside that chamber, you put mindfulness. Be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. And then go on the other side of the moment. And you become enlightened. Nirvana is the Sanskrit word. You've heard the word. Yes? You've heard the word. That's what nir means not. Vana means forest. You leave the forest of material existence and you enter into reality. What's reality? Nothing. Nothingness, void, another way of saying, or nirvana, same. Cessation of material existence. When your material existence has ceased, if you don't acknowledge that you're the first of our Gita values is you are a spirit soul, you don't acknowledge that, because if you're Buddhist, you reject the Vedas, and there's nothing, or it's nothingness. So there's nothing wrong with nonviolence. It's good. But it's meant, real nonviolence is awakening of our spiritual consciousness. That which you can do for yourself and do for others, that's real nonviolence. For yourself and for others. You can't do it for yourself. Not likely you're going to do it for others. But you do it for yourself, then there's a much better chance you're going to be able to pass that on to others. A life of nonviolence to others. And literally, that's what we're doing right now during this session, the ahimsa exercise. Now let's go back. Ahimsa means, no one, forward one. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. So we don't negate the body and call it false, or it doesn't exist. It's there, it's just temporary. The desires, they're there, but they're temporary. We don't negate them, but you utilize faculties that the human life affords you, and you use them towards this end of creating spiritual awareness or full utilization of the human body. Next. We're almost done. Some of you know, you may not know, there's this gentleman named Marshall Rosenberg, is pictured here. He was a Buddhist, and he created a school. He created a whole thing. And some of our ISKCON devotees went to his school and got trained because it's a Bhagavad Gita principle, chapter 17, text 15, how to speak in such a way it's pleasing, speak the truth, pleasing, mode of goodness. It's a mode of goodness principle, and he taught nonviolent communication, got an acronym, NVC, nonviolent communication. And it's something that you learned here yesterday, at least part one. And you has these puppets to do role play. And his right hand, that's a jackal, and that's the violent communicator. And on the left hand, that's a giraffe. He explains giraffe because, in proportionate to his body, the giraffe's heart is really big. So giraffes speak. And how to communicate giraffe speak and how to communicate jackal speak. And choose the nonviolent option. Learn it, and then the behavior becomes your value, or strengthens the value. You have that value of being a nonviolent communicator. Communicate the truth, speak palatably. Nice. It's part of the process of self-realization, is develop these nice qualities. Next. I think we're nearing the end. Okay, this is the interactive session. Think of a situation in your life where you felt non-acceptance of yourself or of others. How did you or the others react to that situation? Next. It says write it down, but I'm going to ask you to speak with others. And you can share with others. We did this yesterday. Find a person or two or three or whatever you want to do it, and have a discussion on how to, what you felt when you were not accepted or another person was not accepted that and how they felt, and know some negative emotions that go with those feelings and how to avoid that. What's the option? Is there an option? The answer is yes, there's an option. So specific circumstance, what happened, what were the feelings, and how could it have been different? That nonviolent ahimsa type of communication. Truth, it's not easy. You try it, you'll find it's not easy. Avoidance is, more preferred option sometimes. Speaking the truth harshly is another option that happens. But so give it a go. I'm gonna sit down while you have your discussion group and see how it goes. Then we'll do some sharing after that. Okay? Got a nice chair right over here. Find a partner, or two or three.